So today we wanted to do a live streaming, and we wanted to do some recording of some of the common questions that people ask us and what you should be doing when you have a lawyer, primarily what questions you should ask when you have a lawyer. And we thought it'd be a good informational piece to do that, really focusing on what questions I need to ask my lawyer if I have a personal injury case. One of the most important things to know and from your lawyer when signing up with a lawyer or going through the process during an injury case. So my name is Gabriel Sanchez. I am the founder at Sepulveda Sanchez Accident Lawyers. This is Eric Canton. He's my managing attorney and runs our litigation team.
Sí, buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Eric Cantón. Como dijo Gabriel, yo manejo el departamento de litigación y pues hoy estamos aquí porque queremos pues enseñarles, ¿verdad?, preguntas que necesitan hacer cuando están decidiendo a qué abogado escoger y elegir.
Thank you. So why does this matter? It's important to ask the right questions to the lawyer you're considering hiring, or if you have a lawyer currently in your case, to make sure you ask the right questions, because not all personal injury lawyers are the same. There's a lot of them out there, and there's a reputation in this industry that one case could change your career, or it could be a lot of money is representing injured people in our field. What that does, though, is there's a lot of different lawyers that don't know what they're doing. They do different practice areas. Some people are doing criminal defense and employment law. They're dabbling in personal injuries, so they may not be the right fit for you. So it's very important as a plaintiff to make sure you ask key questions to your lawyer to make sure they know what they're doing. For example, some lawyers don't know the full value of a case, or what your case is actually worth. It might be a lot of money to them, but really in the hands of an experienced personal injury lawyer, your case could be worth a lot more. Also, a lot of lawyers don't invest the time and more importantly, the resources into that case. In order to maximize the value of a personal injury case, sometimes you got to spend a lot of money in advance that for the client to get the right experts and to really get the value from that case going. And a lot of people, first of all, don't have the resources. A lot of lawyers don't have the resources to invest in your case. And second of all, some of them don't even know that's the way to get the most value out of it. So important to ask the right questions and making sure you have the right lawyer.
Y sí, como dijo mi colega, es muy importante saber con qué abogado estás agarrando, porque muchos abogados no se especializan en este ramo de ley. Es importante saber quiénes son, qué tipos de casos manejan, si tienen la capacidad de pues invertir en tu caso, porque en un caso para poder agarrar el mejor valor posible hay que invertir dinero y hay que saber cómo manejarlo, saber qué expertos se van a necesitar, y muchas veces pues lamentablemente no pasa eso, especialmente cuando vas a una firma que no se especializa en este ramo de ley. Y por eso es importante que hagas las preguntas necesarias para ver si este abogado es el mejor abogado para usted.
Thank you. So one thing you should ask your lawyer is a couple of questions you should always ask your lawyer when you have a case, you're considering hiring them, is what is actually my case worth? And depending on what they say is a good indicator of what kind of lawyer you have. Usually when people ask me what my case is worth, it really just depends, and depends on a few different things. It depends on how injured you are, what kind of medical treatment do you have, what your future medical expenses are, how good the liability is, if there's facts in your favor, or if the liability is like 50-50, maybe you're partially at fault. And then more importantly, the insurance limits. So really, it's hard to tell someone what their case is worth if you don't know what the insurance limits are. So if you ask a lawyer, how much is my case is worth? And he's like, oh, it's worth millions. And a lot of lawyers will say that just to get you to sign up with them. But they tell you that off the bat, and they don't know what the insurance limits are. They're not sure if there's a commercial insurance policy or who the defendant is, things like that. That's a good sign that this lawyer doesn't know what they're talking about, or you're not with the right person. So good question to ask is what is my case worth? And when they tell you that, what your case is potentially worth, ask them why it's worth that. And it's really going to be because of how injured you are, how you're documenting that injury, what the liabilities and the facts are in your favor that show that you're not at fault for this. And the biggest thing is the insurance limits. So don't just take, if your lawyer tells you your case is worth millions, probe into that some more, ask them, well, why is that? And they should be listing those factors out. The other thing too is to, you should ask your lawyer how are we going to get the most, how are we going to get the most from the insurance policy, or what's our strategy for maximizing the settlement? And they should give you some good concrete advice about how we're going to do that. And one of those things that most experienced lawyers will do is they'll tell you, well, we're going to make sure we send you to these expert doctors that are going to write good reports that are going to establish how hurt you are. And also, normally in a bigger case, they'll tell you we're going to have to hire, we're going to have to invest in this case and hire some good experts to testify at trial or be prepared to testify during a deposition to get the value of your case up to. So those are important questions to ask as far as what's the strategy to maximize the value in this case.
Sí, como dijo mi colega, hay dos preguntas que son muy importantes que uno debe de preguntarle a su abogado, ¿verdad? Uno es cuánto vale mi caso. Hay muchos abogados que te van a decir, vale $100,000, muchos miles de dólares, $1 millón, pero para responderte correctamente es importante que el abogado pues investigue un poquito más, ¿verdad? Porque uno nunca sabe cuánto vale un caso hasta que veamos varios factores, cómo puede influenciar un caso. Porque para serles honesto, lo que vale un caso siempre va a depender en muchas cosas, ¿verdad? Uno no puede decir vale $1 millón solo por decir $1 millón. Hay que investigar, ¿verdad? Cuáles son las lesiones, el tratamiento que vas a necesitar. Es importante especialmente considerar los límites de la póliza de la otra persona que es responsable. Hay muchos factores que determinan esencialmente cuánto vale tu caso. Si un abogado te está diciendo, pues tienes un caso que vale millones y millones, muchas veces lo dicen porque quieren tu negocio, pero un abogado que de verdad sabe la ley y entiende esta rama de ley, sabe que, para serte honesto, va a depender de muchas cosas. Y otra cosa que también es muy importante que preguntes es cómo puedo agarrar lo máximo en mi caso, ¿verdad? Y otra vez, eso va a depender de varias cosas, pero dos cosas son muy importantes. Una es, vas a necesitar el tratamiento necesario. Y vas a necesitar ir a buenos doctores, ¿verdad? Y por eso con nosotros tenemos un buen network de doctores que pueden ayudar a darte lo máximo que haya bajo la póliza. Y también la otra cosa es, a veces también dependiendo del caso, se va a tener que invertir en los propios expertos. Y eso es muy importante porque si no tienes los propios expertos para tu caso, eso también puede perjudicar tu caso.
So one of the things we also advise, this goes into the last question we talked about right now, but you really want to ask the lawyer about what the insurance limits are, because the insurance limits ultimately dictates how much you're going to be able to obtain from a case. So you want to ask, hey, do you know what the insurance policy limits are of the defendant involved in this case? And if they tell you, I don't know, well, they have to tell you eventually that they're going to find that out. So if the lawyer doesn't respond to you with, we're going to find that out very soon, and how to explain how they're going to find that out, that's a good indication that you're not with the right lawyer also. So an experienced personal injury lawyer, if someone asks me, well, okay, do you know what the insurance limits are? Well, if I know off the get-go that it was a commercial vehicle, a big rig, an Uber car, a company vehicle, I would pretty much respond that this is a commercial policy and it could be $500,000 to north of $1 million. So just from experience, I know that. However, you want to get a concrete number from your lawyer in regards to the insurance policy limit. So if someone asked me that, I would tell them we're in the process of getting the declaration page from the insurance company. If the insurance company doesn't want to give that for some reason, then we have special investigator and tools, research tools that we can obtain insurance limits, even if the insurance company refuses to give that over for some reason. So your lawyer should know within a few weeks of the incident what the insurance limits are going to be. So it's very important that you ask that, because that's going to really dictate how much you're going to recover. You also want to ask your lawyer, can you confirm that I have uninsured motorist coverage? Or you can ask them, what is uninsured motorist coverage? Are we going to need to tap into my uninsured motorist coverage? So your lawyer should be able to advise to you that, even if this guy that was responsible for causing the accident had minimal insurance, because you have uninsured motorist coverage, we're going to be okay, and we're going to be able to cover your injuries. So those are questions, insurance questions, and asking about insurance, what the limits are, very important. Another thing too is a common trap I see, or common mistake I see other inexperienced lawyers make, is that they may get excited when they have a commercial defendant with a $1 million insurance policy, and because they know, okay, it's a $1 million insurance policy, we can potentially go after that. But a lot of times there's excess insurance beyond that $1 million. So there's excess policies, and rookie lawyers or inexperienced lawyers, people that don't know what they're doing, they can actually take that $1 million and just accept that and not know that there's excess insurance policies, because a lot of times these insurance companies or corporate defendants, they won't even disclose that they have excess. So we have to really push and fight for that knowledge, because you could be entitled to even insurance beyond the excess limits. And that goes for regular defendants, people out in the streets that were private drivers and private vehicles. There could be excess limits on top of their insurance limits. So ask your lawyer if this is there excess limits in this case, or is this all we're going to be limited by? And if they say there's no excess limits, did you check that out? Because you have to go a step further and look for that stuff sometimes.
Y como estaba explicándoles anteriormente, una de las cosas más importantes que su abogado debe determinar es cuánto hay de aseguranza, ¿verdad? Porque puede haber aseguranza de $30,000, $50,000, $100,000, y todo eso va a depender, ¿verdad?, cuánto vale el caso. Es importante saber si es una póliza comercial, porque muchas pólizas comerciales son de unión. Si estás involucrado en un accidente con un Uber, sabes que tienes unión. Pero eso no se para ahí, ¿verdad? Hay otras, es importante también averiguar, tienen otra póliza además de la póliza primaria, porque muchas compañías, especialmente compañías comerciales, a veces tienen el millón de la póliza, pero también tienen otras pólizas que sirven como manera de recuperar si hay daños excesos del millón. So es importante que tu abogado determine eso, ¿verdad? Porque lo que no quieres hacer es, si estás lastimado catastróficamente y tienes lesiones que valen más de $1 millón, lo que no quieres es que tu abogado cierre tu caso por $1 millón si hay otras pólizas que la compañía quizás tenga para poder ayudarte por los daños que sufriste. Otra cosa también que es muy importante es saber si tu abogado ya determinó si tu póliza tiene aseguranza que te puede dar. Si, por ejemplo, la aseguranza de la otra persona no es suficiente para cubrirte. Por ejemplo, si la otra persona solo tiene $30,000 en una póliza, pero tú tienes una póliza de $100,000 que te puede cubrir, es importante que tu abogado determine eso, porque al final de todo, si tienes daños que valen $100,000, puedes recuperar los $30,000 más $70,000 de tu propia póliza, así para poder agarrar los $100,000. So, cobertura y aseguranza es muy importante, y es muy importante que encuentres un abogado que haga lo que tenga que hacer para determinar cuánto hay de aseguranza. Y a veces las aseguranzas no te dan esa información, pero por eso es importante que trabajen con compañías, investigadores, que puedan buscar esa respuesta para ti, para que tengas al menos esa paz, sabiendo mira, esto es lo máximo que puedo recuperar en un caso.
So the next question, next topic I want to talk about is medical treatment. And if you're a new personal injury lawyer or personal injury victim and you've been injured by someone else's negligence, you want to ask your lawyer about medical treatment. And one of the things you want to ask, and you should ask, is, am I using my health insurance to treat, or am I using, am I going to have to use my health insurance to treat? Another question you want to ask is, am I going to be billed out of pocket for the medical treatment? Who's going to pay for my medical expenses? That's what a lot of people get stressed about, is that they get in an accident and they get these bills and they're like, well, what's going on? Like, I didn't cause this accident. This guy hurt me. When is this getting paid? So going to that, your lawyer should tell you, if you ask them, hey, who's going to take care of my medical expenses? Your lawyer should tell you, there could be a couple different things, but for the most part, if someone asked me that question, I would say, hey, we're going to make sure that when this case is resolved, we're going to get you compensated for your past and future medical expenses. And those medical expenses will be paid. Anything you incurred out of pocket will be paid upon this case settling. Okay, so it's important to ask that, because a lot of lawyers, they might not even, like, they may promise you that we're gonna get the medical pays, your out-of-pocket expenses paid right away, and that's just not necessary. That's not true. If you have med pay under your insurance policy, say for instance, on your auto policy, you have this provision called medical payments, then no matter if you're at fault or not, your medical expenses can be paid immediately through that policy you have there, through the MedPay policy. But for the most part, any out-of-pocket expenses you have, you are responsible to pay those, and then we'll go ahead and get reimbursed for that when the case settles. So those are things that you should ask your lawyer, as far as like the out-of-pocket treatment you had, or out-of-pocket expenses you had, the co-pays, when are those going to be reimbursed? And an experienced lawyer will tell you those will be reimbursed after the case resolves. If someone's promising something else, they're usually not correct. Also, a common question, something you should ask your lawyer is, what if I don't have health? If you don't have health insurance, and you ask your lawyer, how am I going to get the medical treatment? And I don't have health insurance. I don't have the money to pay out of pocket for my medical expenses. Your lawyer should tell you that we have a network of doctors that will work with you on a lien basis. And what that means is that these doctors, they're regular doctors like everyone else, but not only do they accept insurance, cash payments, they also accept lien payments. So what lien payments are is that a doctor will promise you that doctor will agree to treat you as long as they're getting paid when that case settles. And it's a contract, it's a promise you make the doctor that you're going to pay his bill when the case settles. So not having insurance shouldn't deter you from hiring a lawyer, from getting the treatment you want, because you do have options, and the doctors are able to be reimbursed upon settling that case. So you should ask your lawyer that, in the event I don't have insurance or health insurance, or sometimes people don't want to use their insurance. If you don't want to use your insurance, or you don't have health insurance, ask your lawyer what options I have. And an experienced personal injury lawyer should have no problem taking your case and working that case with doctors on a lien basis. So that shouldn't deter you at all. That should be a question to ask your attorneys.
Sí, una cosa que es súper importante en el caso es el tratamiento médico que vas a recibir. Es muy importante que hagas las preguntas necesarias para que entiendas cómo va a trabajar el tratamiento médico. Muchas veces hay gente que no tiene aseguranza o no quiere tratar con su aseguranza. Eso es importante de preguntarles a tus abogados, pues, cómo voy a agarrar el tratamiento que necesito. Y pues abogados que tienen mucha experiencia en esto te van a decir, mira, no te preocupes de eso. Nosotros tenemos varios doctores que te pueden dar tratamiento, que te pueden ayudar, y te van a explicar cómo vas a pagar eso al final. Muchas veces estos doctores lo que hacen es que te dan el tratamiento que necesitas, y al final del caso, dependiendo de cuánto recuperes, trabajan contigo para pagar los biles que vas a agarrar mientras que estás agarrando el tratamiento que necesitas. es muy importante que encuentres abogados que sepan cómo ayudarte a manejar tu tratamiento médico, cómo guiarte con tu tratamiento médico, porque sí es un proceso que puede ser bastante difícil y pues que obviamente es algo que uno necesita para poder darle valor al caso, ¿verdad? Es algo que va a afectar cómo la aseguranza va a valorar el caso y es importante que pues agarres tratamiento que te vaya a ayudar y que seas consistente con ese tratamiento y un buen abogado te va a ayudar a lograr eso.
So another topic I want to talk about is process and timeline. People call our firm and always ask, how long does this take? Or before they sign up with us, they'll ask us how long is the process going to take. And that's a good question you should ask your lawyers, because it's good for both the relationship with the client and the law firm to manage expectations. But you should ask your lawyer, how realistically is my case going to settle? And usually if they're promising you, I'm going to get this done within a month, well, that's rare that happens, and it's good to evaluate what they tell you. So ask your lawyer, how long is this case going to realistically take? And like anything, like a common answer to that is it all depends. If you have serious injuries and there's a big commercial policy, well, a lot of times when we're demanding 7 figures or above, the insurance companies don't typically just give that away. It happens once in a while; they'll just pay out quick, but for the most part, they're gonna have to fight for that, and it can take, on average, anywhere from 6 months to a couple of years. So it really is hard to put a realistic timeline on it for every type of case. But a regular rear injury case, that's just a soft tissue case where you go into chiropractic care and you're getting MRIs and pain management. Those cases can take on average of 6 to 8 months. But when you have serious injuries and serious insurance policies you're dealing with, it's not uncommon to be fighting for that over a year. But those are important questions to ask your lawyer. If they're promising you quick money, if they're telling you the case is going to settle very quickly, it's usually a red flag. And because usually if you're doing it the right way, if the law firm's managing your treatment properly, doing what they can to get the most from the insurance policy, it's going to take some time. There are a lot of law firms out there that sign cases, send a demand, even though the client's not done treating or is still in pain, and they just kind of churn and burn cases out. And you have to be very cautious of those types of law firms, because law firms, there are a lot of people out there looking to make a quick buck too. So it is a process, but the reason it's a process is because the law firm's working on making the case more valuable for you. So that's a very important question to ask your lawyers regarding how long the process takes. You should also ask them what litigation is, and do you guys litigate? So there's more and more law firms popping up that they only do cases pre-litigation. So what that means is that if they get a low settlement offer from the insurance companies, they're not going to litigate your case, sit into the litigation team at their firm. A lot of lawyers don't even like to litigate, and the problem with that is that the insurance companies, they know what firms will actually take the case into court and go to a jury trial eventually, and which ones don't. So if you sign up with a firm that doesn't litigate, there's a good chance that you may not get the value, the full value for that case, because the insurance companies know, oh, these guys don't litigate; they're just looking to churn and burn files. So ask your lawyer if they do litigate, and you might even want to ask them, have you done a jury trial before? Because a lot of lawyers haven't, and that's an important skill to have if you're going to be representing injured victims.
Sí, es otra pregunta que es muy importante que le preguntes a un abogado que quieras contratar es ¿cuánto va a durar este proceso? Y como cada buena pregunta, ¿verdad? Buena respuesta, depende. Porque dependen muchas cosas. Si estás con un abogado que te está diciendo, va a ser bien rápido, en 1 o 2 meses vas a tener X dinero, eso no es un abogado que es bueno para ti, ¿verdad? Porque el proceso Puede durar de 6 a 8 meses, puede durar un año, puede durar 2 años. Pero un buen abogado sabe que para agarrar el valor máximo de un caso, pues eso toma tiempo, toma tiempo para que agarres el tratamiento que necesites, toma tiempo para agarrar la evidencia necesaria para probar tu caso. No es solo mando una demanda, agarro la primera oferta y ya, ¿verdad? Es un proceso y es un proceso que puede durar, especialmente si, por ejemplo, es un caso que requiere que vaya a litigación. Hay muchas firmas que no hacen ese proceso, no les gusta hacer ese proceso porque el proceso de litigación puede ser largo, puede ser algo que toma mucho tiempo, y eso requiere que el abogado trabaje más. Es muy importante que, además de preguntar sobre el proceso, también preguntar si la firma con quien estás, si hacen litigación, si han ido a juicio, si tienen esa experiencia, porque al final de todo, si quieres agarrar el máximo valor de tu caso, a veces hay que pasar por no solo el proceso del tratamiento inicialmente, pero también pasar por el proceso de litigación para poder agarrar el mejor valor de tu caso.
Next topic to discuss is attorney's fees and how much you should be taking home from the settlement amount. You always want to ask your attorney what you charge. You want to really look at that retainer agreement and seeing what the attorney's fees are. Look at what the costs are going to be, what the actual firm is going to recover in cost, and what they're going to recover in attorney's fees, what percentages. So the standard I've seen in California in general, I've seen on the lower end of attorney's fees, I've seen 33 to 35% pre-litigation. I've also seen firms take 40% pre-litigation. I've seen that also. Once the case goes into litigations, it's common that the fees will go up. So I've seen typically, on average, I've seen people charge 40 to 45% in litigation, typically more 40. But then once the case goes to trial, or if it's forced to go to trial, most firms will charge 45%. And you want to ask your lawyer why, because it seems like it seems like a bigger percentage, but you want to ask your lawyer to explain why that is, and should give you the response that, hey, you know what, we're doing these cases on a contingency fee. We're not billing by the hour, and there's a lot of risk that goes into taking these cases. Not only that, there's a lot of risk, there's a lot of resources, and it's not uncommon for a big case to cost the firm up to $100,000 of an advanced cost that should get you that result. Some of our biggest settlements here, the 7 figures plus cases, we've invested our own capital with experts on our client's behalf so we can get the results for them. So your attorney should articulate why it is that the percentage is set like that. Really what it does is it allows us lawyers to represent people that would ordinarily couldn't pay us by the hour. So instead of paying the lawyer by the hour, we're able to represent a lot more people because we can take a percentage of the settlement. So make sure to ask them what your fees are. Make sure to ask if they advance costs on your behalf. Most established personal injury law firms should be advancing costs on your behalf for you. If they're charging you costs up front, or if a lawyer is asking for money up front in your personal injury case, that's a big red flag that you're probably not with an established, experienced personal injury lawyer. A personal injury lawyer should not ask for money up front, take a retainer, ask you to pay cost up front. That's a sign that you're not with the right lawyer, and there are people out there that do that. So make sure to ask if they advance the cost for you. Do you need any money? Are you requiring me to put any money up front? Because if they're demanding that from you, then it's probably a sign that you don't have the right lawyer. So important to ask those questions when determining who to hire as your personal injury lawyer.
Y otra cosa que es muy importante es pues tener un entendimiento de cuánto te va a costar el proceso, cuánto le vas a tener que pagar al abogado, cómo se van a manejar los costos del caso. So, típicamente en California, o al menos en Los Ángeles, muchas firmas cobran entre 33 a 35% por sus servicios si el caso se resuelve antes de que vaya a litigación. Cuando hay que ir a litigación, el honorario usualmente sube al 40%. Hay firmas que cobran de 40 a 45%, pero en general 40% es el estándar que encuentras aquí en California. Y de ahí muchas veces es importante saber qué pasa si tienes que ir a juicio. Su juicio es cuando un jurado va a determinar pues lo que vaya a pasar con tu caso. Y en esas situaciones el honorario sube a 45%, porque en situaciones así, uno hay que invertir mucho más dinero en el caso para ir a juicio. Fácilmente un caso que se va a juicio cuesta casi $100,000, sino más, para poder llevar el caso al tribunal con los expertos y todo lo que se necesita para ir a juicio. Y también pues son muchas horas de tiempo que se invierte en proceder el caso a juicio, mucho tiempo de preparación, estando en el juicio. Por esas razones se sube el honorario a 45%. Es muy importante que tengas idea de cuánto se cobra y qué es típico en el área. También cuestión de los costos. Muchas firmas avanzan los costos para ti. Por ejemplo, si hay que pagar, buscar un reporte que tienes que pagar por una copia, tú no te tienes que preocupar de pagar ese costo. Si hay que contratar a un vendedor a que haga una investigación, los costos no tienes que pagarlos enfrente. Es muy importante que busques una firma que no te esté tratando de cobrar por costos al principio del caso, porque muchas firmas, especialmente firmas que están establecidas, usualmente pagan esos costos y al final es cuando pagas pues el honorario y los costos que se hayan avanzado de tu parte.
So next we'll be transitioning into our question and answer portion of this live, and looks like we'll look at who's asking questions here. Okay. All right. Question from Armando Rojas. What if I stop treatment? How did I hurt my case permanently? Okay. No, not necessarily. I think the most important part when you have a case is that you saw a doctor's right away or very close within the time of the incident. If you get if you get injured due to someone's negligence, and say in the beginning of the month, say it's April 1st and you got in a car accident, and then you don't go to a doctor until August of this year, you got 3 or 4 months without treatment, that is typically a case where a lot of firms will not take the case because there's no documentation of your injuries. And insurance companies are going to look at it and they're going to be like, okay, why didn't you treat all of a sudden 4 months later? He didn't get any treatment. Why, what's going on? It just makes the case a lot harder because the insurance companies have no documentation that you were actually hurt because of the incident. And the funny thing is that it's not necessarily true that you're not hurt, because all of us have, people have been in accidents and they just want to rough it out. They don't want to see a doctor. They don't like doctors. They don't have health insurance, whatever it is. Some people just try to go about their lives and manage it. So it doesn't mean that you're not hurt, but it could hurt. It's going to hurt your case if you don't have that documentation, because that's how the system works. The insurance companies need to justify giving you a settlement. So the question is, if I stop treatment, is my case permanently, did hurt my case permanently? The answer is no. Because a lot of times it's very common. You can go to a doctor after an accident, and life, you get busy. Sometimes you're like, he might give you a surgery recommendation, and you're like, I don't want to have surgery. And a year goes by, and then you're like, finally, you know what? I think I need this. My shoulder or my back's messed up. So just because you stop treatment doesn't doesn't necessarily mean your case is permanently hurt or it's not good anymore. But it is important to resolve that and get back into the doctor to get a report and get that documented.
En cuestión de la pregunta si, pues, si paras tratamiento, si eso puede dañar tu caso permanentemente. Y para serles honesto, no, pero tratamiento es muy importante. Poder mostrar consistencia, poder mostrar documentación de lo que estás pasando. Eso te va a ayudar mucho más que si paras el tratamiento, pero no quiere decir que si dejas de tratar, pues te va a perjudicar el caso completamente, porque también a veces un buen abogado sabe cómo explicar eso, sabe explicar que, pues mira, mi cliente, pues sí, lo ayudó al tratamiento, quiso tratar de hacer su tratamiento en casa, le pedía a su esposa que le sobe su espalda cada semana. Solo porque no estás yendo a tratamiento no quiere decir que no estás lastimado. Y un buen abogado sabe cómo explicarle eso a las compañías de aseguranza y sabe cómo demostrar, ¿verdad? Que a veces la vida pasa. He tenido muchos casos cuando clientes porque tienen que trabajar, porque son los únicos que le dan que trabajan y provienen para la familia. Hay muchas razones por cuales uno no sigue tratando consistentemente, pero sí se recomienda, ¿verdad? Si puedes seguir tratamiento consistentemente, que lo hagas para que no le des excusa a la aseguranza decir que no estás lastimado.
So let's see, next question. Lupita, thank you, Lupita, for the kind words. Appreciate it. Let's see here. Question from Hilda. When does it really become necessary to file a lawsuit? So, well, the simple answer is that when they're not giving you, when they're not settling with, when they're not giving you a reasonable settlement offer. When the only reason you want to file a lawsuit is there's a couple of reasons why. First things first is that the insurance company is not giving you a reasonable offer in light of your medical treatment and injuries. If they're just lowballing your case and you've already sent a demand package to the insurance company and they're just not valuing it what it should be valued at, then you're going to have to file a lawsuit and put it into the court's hands. Potentially even go to a jury trial to get a jury to give you the numbers that the lawyer and the client feel that you deserve and you should get. So that's one of the reasons why you want to go into the lawsuit mode. Sometimes too is that maybe you didn't have a lawyer for a while, you're injured, something bad happened, but now the deadline is like coming up and you don't have time to settle with the insurance companies. You have to like get this case into the lawsuit system. That's another reason why you would want to put your case into litigation too. So it's typically because they're not offering you enough money, and the litigation is a tool for us that gives us leverage to get you more settlement value from your case, or you just have to preserve your case before the deadline runs. So I see those as the two main reasons.
En cuestión de cuándo hay que pues someter la demanda en la corte, una de las razones principales por cual eso pasa es porque honestamente la aseguranza está buscando por cualquier excusa para no pagarte pues el valor del caso. Y son muchos casos son en esos instantes cuando tu abogado determine que pues el caso no se va a poder cerrar para un valor que es justo y necesario. En ese punto es cuando ya requiere que se haga la demanda con la corte, porque eso lo que pasa cuando a veces haces una demanda con la corte, a veces cambia el ajustador, a veces cuando ya meten abogado la compañía, los abogados de ellos pueden hacer un análisis del valor del caso que es más alto de lo que el ajustador estaba determinando que valía tu caso. Muchas veces la mayor razón por cual casos se van a litigación es porque inicialmente la aseguranza no está valorando el caso por lo que debe ser. Y pues otra razón, ¿verdad? Hay muchas situaciones donde uno de verdad está muy lastimado y sigue con tratamiento y a veces pasan 2 años en tratamiento y es necesario hacer una demanda porque solo tienes 2 años para hacer una demanda con la corte. En situaciones así no hay otra opción, pero porque, por ejemplo, si es una póliza alta y pues necesitas el tratamiento, vas a seguir en tratamiento. Esas son las 2 situaciones que usualmente pasan, o una tercera también, ¿verdad? Dicen que tú fuiste culpable por el accidente, pero la evidencia demuestra que no es así. Hay alguien que vio el accidente que dice que no fue la culpa de la otra persona, o tienes evidencia que demuestra que no fuiste culpable. En casos así se va a tener que ir a litigación.
Okay, let's see here. What if my lawyer hasn't mentioned multiple insurance policies? Well, there should be 2 insurance policies your lawyer talks about, and the first one should be the at-fault parties insurance policy. Your lawyer should have knowledge about what the limits are. If they don't have knowledge of what those insurance limits are for the at-fault party, they should be in the process of getting that. Very important, especially early on in the case. And the second insurance policy they should know about is your insurance policy, what your insurance limits are, if you have uninsured motorist benefits. So those are the 2 main policies. Now, just because there could potentially be more insurance policies out there doesn't necessarily mean that there are, obviously. So at a minimum, you should be mentioning, your lawyer should know the 2 main insurance policies, the at-fault party and your insurance policy. So there's not a mention of umbrella or commercial policy limits. That's not necessarily a red flag, but you should ask the lawyer, hey, is there insurance? Is there excess policy on this case? Is there commercial policy? And he can give you a straight answer whether there is or not, whether he knows. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, so básicamente en cuestión de las aseguranzas, la más importante, ¿verdad? Va a ser determinar si tu abogado pudo determinar cuánto de aseguranza tiene la persona culpable por tus lesiones. Usualmente esa es la póliza principal, pero también la otra es si tu abogado ha determinado si tú tienes aseguranza disponible que pueda ayudarte en caso que la aseguranza de la otra persona no sea suficiente. Esas son las 2 pólizas principales, pero también si no te han mencionado, si hay varias pólizas de aseguranza, pues pregunta por si han investigado. Usualmente eso no lo mencionan hasta el final, o quizás la investigación no reveló otra póliza, pero al final de todo, ¿verdad? Es muy importante que te asegures cuando estés cerrando tu caso, si el abogado recibió confirmación que esta es la única póliza que está disponible.
This one is a question. It says, how do I know my lawyer fees are fair? Well, we talked about this earlier, is that if you're typically what you see is in a pre-litigation case, standard fees are anywhere from 33 to 35%. That's what I've been seeing. Litigation, you're typically seeing 40 to 45% in litigation. So as far as the lawyer fees are fair, if you're seeing someone charging 50% in pre-litigation, that's kind of I would ask them to really justify why that is. I haven't seen that, but 50% fee pre-litigation and a 50% fee in litigation is pretty abnormally high. So I would ask them to justify that. I think what's most important is that when the case settles, that you have the settlement offer or settlement was a good amount, and have the lawyer explain to you why it was a good amount. And then when you have the breakdown, the case should be the client should be getting the most out of the settlement. That's my belief. It's $100,000 settlement or $1 million settlement. Typically what I've seen is that at least a third of it should be allocated to attorney's fees, a third of it should be allocated to medical expenses, and then the remaining amount goes to the client. So the breakdown should always show that the client, a good indication that a settlement is fair is that the breakdown at the end of the case shows that you're obtaining most of the amount in the settlement offer. A lot of times too, the medical bills are negotiable. If you treat it on a lien, the attorney's office can make sure that they deal with the medical bills to make sure you're getting a good amount. You're getting a good amount, and that the doctors aren't taking so much of your settlement too. So you have to pay back bills, obviously, but it's important that the doctors get in line with what the total settlement amount is, because ultimately we all benefit from representing you. So you should be the one getting the most of the settlement. Doesn't mean that you're getting 90% of the settlement and the lawyers and doctors are sharing the 10% of that. That's unreasonable. We all have businesses we have to run too. But you should be getting a majority of that settlement, or at least a third of it. That's my thoughts on whether or not a settlement's fair.
Sí, so alguien preguntó cómo sé si los honorarios son algo que es razonable o cómo determino si lo que estoy agarrando es justo. Y pues, como explicamos anteriormente, si hay un abogado que te está cobrando 50% y está recibiendo 50% de lo que se recuperó, pues obviamente, basado en nuestra experiencia, eso no es algo que sería justo. Pero para nosotros, ¿verdad? Tratamos que pues el cliente se quede con la mayor parte, al menos una tercera parte del acuerdo, porque obviamente los gastos médicos hay que pagarlos de vuelta. Es importante que veas pues cuánto se está yendo a los doctores, cuánto se está yendo a la firma y cuánto me voy a quedar yo al final de todo. Y como te digo, usualmente un buen resultado es en lo cual el cliente se queda con al menos con la tercia parte, sino un poquito más, y pues los doctores son razonables, reducen sus gastos médicos para que sea una cantidad que sea justo, basado en el valor del caso.
Okay, so take one more question. Let's see what we got here. Let's see. At what point should I expect my lawyer to file a lawsuit? So this is a good one, because I've seen a lot of lawyers unnecessarily waste time and just wait to the last minute when they should have filed that lawsuit a long time ago. My rule of thumb is that once the insurance adjusters are just not getting to where you need to be to get a settlement in pre-litigation, you should be filing that lawsuit immediately. So if today I know that we're just too far apart, we value this case at 1 million, they value this case at 100,000, and they're just not seeing how valuable your case is, I'll immediately say, okay, this is going to litigation, and I'll put it into my litigation team. And typically within a couple of weeks, they'll have that lawsuit filed. So there's no reason to wait on that. Some lawyers, because typically the statute of limitations, which is the deadline to file a lawsuit, is 2 years. There's exceptions to that, and there's different deadlines, but for the most run-of-the-mill cases are a 2-year deadline. So some lawyers will wait. If the deadline is in January of next year, and the settlement negotiations have reached an impasse between the insurance company and the law firm, a lot of lawyers will wait until end of December to file a lawsuit. And that's just a bad practice habit. And the insurance companies, they know what law firms do that, and it doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do anyone any good. So it's important that your lawyer should be filing a lawsuit as soon as there's a settlement impasse and you're not getting anywhere with that insurance adjuster. That case should be going into this litigation team immediately or pretty soon after that impasse has been reached between the adjuster and the law firm. So there's no good reason to wait until the very last minute to file a lawsuit.
Ya, sí, vamos a tomar una pregunta más. Si alguien preguntó a qué punto debería mi abogado hacer la demanda con la corte. Y pues básicamente la respuesta de eso es cuando ya pues hay ya la aseguranza ha determinado que no te va a pagar el valor de que estás pidiendo, y pues la única opción es pues proceder con litigación. Lo que pasa a veces es que muchos abogados esperan hasta los 2 años para meter la demanda, o cuando reciben esa información dejan el caso sentarse mientras que sigues con tratamiento antes de que hagan la demanda. Pero es muy importante ya que pues sepas de que no están valorando el caso como deben, o han dicho que no van a aceptar culpabilidad sobre el caso, hacer ya la demanda lo más pronto posible para poder empezar el proceso en litigación. Usualmente aquí nosotros, cuando apenas nos enteremos de que no vamos a poder resolver el caso antes de litigación, pues entre unas semanas ya tenemos la demanda lista y ya está con la corte.
All right. So thank you for everyone that joined us today. We're at Sepulveda. Eric's been doing this for 10 plus. I'm doing this for, so whatever that is, 14 years. So we definitely know what we're doing. We have a passion for representing people who have been injured and by someone else's negligence. We have a passion for representing the Hispanic community and our people too. So if you have any questions, feel free to email either one of us and reach out if you need any assistance with any legal matters, especially your personal injury cases. So thank you for joining.
Sí, muchas gracias a todos por venir hoy y hacer pues sus preguntas y pasar un tiempo con nosotros. Gabriel ya ha estado haciendo esto desde el 2014 y yo pues ya tengo casi 10 años haciendo esto. Los dos somos bien apasionados sobre lo que hacemos, representando a nuestros clientes lo mejor posible, y pues tratando de ayudar a la comunidad hispana y en general por lo que esté pasando, porque sabemos que un accidente puede cambiarte la vida, y lo que necesitas es alguien a tu lado que te va a guiar y que te va a apoyar y que va a estar ahí para ti. Si tienen algunas preguntas, contáctenos, estamos aquí para servirles.